So, hello guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Vijeta, and today we will be continuing with Spencer's Fairy Queen. We discussed about the three books, and now we will start with book 4. And the last three books were added in 1596. So, that is that. Now, book 4 starts with book 4 has this title, The Legend of Campbell and Telemund, or of Friendship. And Campbell's companion in book 4 is actually named Triamond, and the plot does not center on their friendship. The two men appear only briefly in the story, so the title is kind of a red herring. And the book is largely a continuation of events begun in book 3. First, Scudamore is convinced by the Hag 8 or Discord that Britomart has run off with Amoret and becomes jealous. A 3-day tournament is then held by Saturn where Britomart beats Artigal, both in disguise. Scudamore and Artigal unite against Britomart, but when her helmet comes off in battle, Artigal falls in love with her. He surrenders, removes his helmet, and Britomart recognizes him as the man in the enchanted mirror. Artigal pledges his love to her, but he must first leave and complete his quest. Scudamore, upon discovering Britomart's gender, realizes his mistake and asks after his lady, but by this time Britomart has lost Amoret, and she and Scudamore embark together on a search for her. So here Britomart is more like Brienne of Tarth. And now the reader discovers that Amoret was abducted by a savage man and is imprisoned in his cave. One day, Amoret darts out past the savage and is rescued from him by the squire, Timaeus and Belphoebe. Arthur then appears, offering his service as a knight to the lost woman. She accepts, and after a couple of trials on the way, Arthur and Amoret finally come across Scudamore and Britomart. The two lovers are reunited, wrapping up a different plotline from Book 3. The recently recovered Marinel discovers Florimel suffering in Proteus's dungeon. He returns home and becomes sick with love and pity. Eventually, he confesses his feelings to his mother and she pleads with Neptune to have the girl released, which the god grants. Now, Book 5 is centered on the virtue of justice as embodied in Sir Artigal, and book 6 is centered on the virtue of courtesy as embodied in Sir Calidore. These are the important things that you need to remember for UGC NET. If you wish to know more about the works, you can obviously read by yourself. Now we come to another work of Spencer, The Shepherd's Calendar, very important. And it was Spencer's first major work, published in 1579 by Hugh Singleton. It is an allegorical poem in the form of a dialogue. Edmund Spencer dedicates his volume to Sir Philip Sidney and signs himself Emerito. Very important. It is written on imitation of Virgil's first book, The Eclogues and Theocritus's Ideals. The poem introduces Colin Clout, a folk character originated by John Skelton, and depicts his life as a shepherd through the 12 months of the year. The two lovers are reunited. I think I just repeated it. Now we come to the depiction of the months. And in January, Colin Clout, full on, is rejected by his beloved Rosalind and compares his mood with the wintry landscape. At the end of the poem, Colin breaks his shepherd's pipes and resolves to write no more poetry. And obviously, January is the month of winters and very sullen, very grey. And Colin compares his mood with January because his lover has, left him. So that is something. Now we come to February. An imprudent young shepherd, Cuddy, complains of the wintry blasts to the elderly Theonot, and he scorns the old man's philosophical view that one must learn to endure the long succession of misfortunes that this world brings and be concerned only with the safety of the flock. In March, two young shepherds welcome spring as a time for love. April. In April, Theonot finds Hobbit grieving over the sorrows of his friend Colin Clout and mourning that Colin's unrequited love deprived all the shepherds of his poem. It calls for a song of praise for Elizabeth I. May. In this eclogue, the two shepherds, Piers and Palinod, are represented as Protestant and Catholic. June. This eclogue is wholly devoted to the lamentation of Colin's ill success in love. July. This eclogue is made in honor and commendation of good shepherds and to the shame and dispraise of proud and ambitious pastors, such as Morel is imagined to be. August. This eclogue is an imitation of Virgil's third and seventh eclogues. Cutty, a neat herd's boy, recites a song authored by Colin. September. This eclogue features a dialogue between two shepherds, Hobinol and Digon Dewey. October. In this eclogue, Cuddy presents an ideal model of a poet while engaging in conversation with Piers. November. This eclogue imitates Marat, capturing his song written in memory of Lois, the French queen. December. The eclogue concludes with Colin lamenting God's plan as he reflects on his life in relation to the four seasons. Spring, a time when he was free from all folly. Summer, representing manhood characterized by love. Autumn or fall, his riper years. Winter, to his last days. Now we come to Emirati sonnets, written in 1595, and it was published by William Ponsonby in a volume entitled Amorati and Epithalamion. Amorati is an Italian word which means little love gift or little love poems. Very important. It is a sequence of 89 sonnets dedicated to his second wife, Elizabeth Boyle. Spenser's second wife was Elizabeth Boyle. In the first 4 lines, the author compares himself to a book that is read by his love, Elizabeth. He hopes that Elizabeth will hold his poems in her lily white hands. Rhyme scheme of the sonnet is ABAB, BCBC, CDCD, and EE. This sonnet cycle ends with a set of stanzas returning to the poem's title character, Cupid. The first set of stanza described how Cupid led the speaker into harem when he was young. Cupid causes the speaker to draw his attention towards honey, and when the speaker reaches to fetch it, he was stung by bees and the Cupid flew away. Now we come to Epithalamion, written in 1595. It was written by Spenser on his wedding with Elizabeth Boyle in 1594, but published in 1595. It is also called Nuptial Song. It is an ode written to his bride, Elizabeth Boyle. When published by William Ponsonby, both works were included in the volume, and Epithalamion and Amorati were published together in 1595. The ode consists of 24 stanzas. Each stanza contains 18 lines, and each stanza corresponds to an hour of a midsummer's day. Prothalamion, written in 1596. It is a betrothal song. I think it's called betrothal song, written on the occasion of the twin marriage of the daughters of the Earl of Worcester, Elizabeth Somerset and Catherine Somerset. In this poem, when the bride awakes, her eyes are compared to the sun. The poem begins with the description of River Thames, where Spenser finds 2 beautiful women. The line from this song, "Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song," is used by T.S. Eliot in his The Wasteland. Very important. Astrophel, written in 1595. It is a pastoral elegy written by Spenser on the death of Sir Philip Sidney and was dedicated to Sidney's wife, the Countess of Essex. It was published in the same volume in which Colin Cloud Comes Home Again was published in 1595. Colin Cloud Comes Home Again, written in 1595. It is a pastoral poem by Spenser and it was published in 95. It is based on the subject of Spenser's visit to London in 1591. He wrote it after returning home to Ireland. He dedicated it to Sir Walter Raleigh. Mother Hubbard's Tale or Prosopopoeia. The poem is autobiographical in nature. It is a poem by Spenser as a part of his collection's Complaint, but it was sold separately as the 4th part. The poem follows the story of a sick, bedridden poet who has visitors that they try to entertain him with stories. The only one poet finds worthy enough to retell is the tale told by old Mother Hubbard about an ape and a fox. The poem was antagonized by Lord Burghley, the primary secretary of Elizabeth I, and Spencer was thus removed from the English court. So yeah, Lord Burghley took offense, and that became the unbecoming of Spencer. Other minor works: Daphnada, an elegy upon the death of the noble and venturous Lady Douglas Howard; Complaints, 1591, a collection of 9 poems; The Tears of the Muses, second part of Complaint, 1590. He dedicated it to Lady Strange. The Ruins of Time, first part of Complaint; The Visions of Petrarch, 4 hymns: Hymns to Beauty, Hymns to Love, Hymns to Heavenly Beauty, Hymns to Heavenly Love. These are the 4 hymns. A view of the present state of Ireland, in which he had very strong opinions, I can say, and it was written in 1596. Spenserian stanza. The stanza's main meter is 8 lines, iambic pentameter, with a final line in iambic hexameter having 6 feet or stresses, known as Alexandrine. The rhyme scheme is ABAB, BCBC, C. And thus we finish Spencer and come to the probably the most important section of English literature, both from the point of UGC NET and from the point of view of a literature enthusiast, which is William Shakespeare, who had a better timeline and he was able to contribute so much to English literature. Obviously, he was influenced by his predecessors, of whom we talked about, so they were important as well. But Shakespeare is celebrated, and now we shall start Shakespeare. His timeline was from 1564 to 1616. And William Shakespeare was an English poet, playwright, and actor, widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the world's greatest dramatist. He is often called England's national poet and the Bard of Avon. His extant works, including collaborations, consist of approximately 39 plays, 154 sonnets, 2 long narrative poems, and a few other verses, some of uncertain authorship. He was born and raised in Stratford upon Avon, Warwickshire, sometime between 1585 and 1592. He began a successful career in London as an actor, writer, and part owner of a playing company called the Lord Chamberlain's Men, later known as the King's Men. Shakespeare produced most of his known works between 1589 and 1613. Until about 1608, he wrote mainly tragedies, among them Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth, all considered to be among the finest works in the English language. In 1623, 2 fellow actors and friends of Shakespeare's, John Hemingis and Henry Condell, published a more definitive text known as the First Folio, a posthumous collected edition of Shakespeare's dramatic works that included all but 2 of his plays. The volume was prefaced by a poem by Ben Jonson, in which Jonson hails Shakespeare in a now famous quote as "not of an age, but for all time." So yeah, that was quite a quote, and I think I shall end my lecture here. Shakespeare's works and Shakespeare's life will take a lot of lectures, but I hope you will be patient, and I will stop here. And thank you for listening. If you have any suggestions or corrections, please comment in the comment box. Feedback is always welcome. If you like the video, please give it a like, and subscribe to my channel, and I will meet you all in the next video.